Now, on Monday, Chief Secretary and Secretary of Finance Farley Augustine presented a $4.54 billion estimate budget for Tobago. Now, in his presentation, Mr. Augustine actually requested that the central government give Tobago 6.9% of the national budget, which he said he forecasted as being 65.78 billion. And so joining us this morning to give us his analysis is former Finance Secretary, Mr. Joel Jack. Mr. Jack, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Top of the morning to you. Let me say good morning to all of Trinidad and all of Tobago. Thank you for having me on.
Mr. Jack, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope we can have a fruitful discussion. I know you would have been the one to actually analyze the budget back when you were the finance
I'm not
secretary.
Hearing you at all. If you can hear me,
I am hearing you clear, Mr. Jack. Can you hear me?
No, I'm not hearing you at all.
All right. I don't know if it is Hello? Mr. Jack, hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
You're hearing me now, yes.
Yes.
All good. Okay, good. So I was saying that I know that you were in these shoes once before, well, many times before, actually, as you had to analyze the budget for the island. And so I just wanted to get your initial thoughts on that 6.9% that the current chief secretary is asking for.
Well, you are going in and out, but I think you're asking for my initial response to the budget.
Yes.
And I think as all right-thinking citizens, whether you're Tobagonian or in Trinidad, you should be concerned with respect to the budget that was outlined by the current chief secretary, requesting approximately $4.5 billion from the central government. And there are some important questions that we have to ask. First of all, what is the strategic underpinning guiding this budget? And clearly there is none. It's really a patchwork, a collection of feel-good ideas without any overarching guiding policy document or socioeconomic planning document to advance Tobago's development.
Yeah.
And that is concerning to me. And it should be of concern to all Tobagonians and all Trinbagonians. Additionally, there's an absence of transparency and accountability with respect to the finances of the assembly, and the budget lacks adequate details with respect to the funding received by the government. What was the quantum or level of contingencies funding expended, and what was the unexpended balances from the previous financial year, how those funds were allocated and spent during the fiscal year, and what were some of the projects, or what are some of the projects earmarked for contingency expenditure. In my budget annually in section 3, that was outlined in detail, as well as an update with respect to the Moody's rating. The THA has abandoned the Moody's rating for no clear, plausible reason. And that is also an area of concern, given the fact that the Assembly has intimated that they are developing a prospectus to attract investors to come to Tobago.
Now, Mr. Jack, I just want to... Mr. Jack, can you hear me? Please tell me that you're hearing me clearer now. Can you?
I'm hearing you now.
Nice, good. I just want to interject here. Now, I know that you mentioned development plans, but I just want to go off track a bit to health, because as I understand, health was given the biggest allocation for that budget. People have been, questioning that, because I know that we are coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, but I also know that there's also a focus on completing the Roxborough Hospital, at least by 2024. And so I also wanted to get your thoughts on that as well.
Well, I mean, when I'm listening to the rationale, and I'm also concerned because we have been told that there's a need to complete the Roxborough Hospital, and we must thank the Honorable Prime Minister and the Central Government partnering with the Tobago House of Assembly. That led to the construction of the Roxborough Hospital, but that hospital, as was claimed by the administration, was operationalized. So I'm not sure what is the need for it. But later on this morning, the minority leader will outline in detail some disingenuity with respect to the allocation for health and
Yes.
the need for it.
Yes.
Now, previously, the health sector, and then primarily through the TRHA, received a sizable subvention and allocation in the budgets. And we are disaggregating the data, and we have some areas of concern, some expenditure items that were mentioned in the budget. We have serious red flags, as we have with respect to um, the operations of the assembly and the expenditure items covered by this administration.
Yeah.
What we have what we have seen year on year is an economic decline in Tobago, and that is also some concern. And what is also troubling as well is that the chief secretary glossed over these details in his presentation and did not outline for us the areas of decline, what are the measures that his administration will undertake to stem the decline and to institute the necessary economic resilience within the Tobago economy, and also what are their plans to accelerate and to facilitate economic diversification.
Interesting. I also want to go back to the development as well, because I know that there are some, well, there was some talk about building and boosting that agriculture farming sector, especially in terms of the region having that goal to reduce our food import bill by 25% by 2025. And so do you think that he was on track in saying that he wants to continue building the farming community and also that mega farm policy that he's proposing?
Well, what we have seen over the past 18 months is a trend by this administration to outline policies, but then their actions are antithetical to those policies and also antithetical to the island's development and accelerating the pace of the island's development and to provide the necessary support for the agriculture sector. Farmers on the island were clamoring and they were complaining and protesting and indicating to the chief secretary that he has not kept his word with respect to the necessary support for the sector. So I am concerned as well, given the fact that coming out of the COVID pandemic and as outlined in our comprehensive development plans and our medium-term planning framework, the agriculture sector was identified for enhanced support and expenditure at the level of the Executive Council. We made the necessary funding available. We allocated state lands to farmers. We provided the necessary support to the agriculture divisions to acquire tractors and machinery to ensure that we ramp up agriculture production on the island, and primarily in the first instance to provide a level of food security to the island, and additionally to provide food for export to Trinidad. When you also look at this current administration's stance with respect to Tobago's development is also another area of concern with respect to the tourism sector. As we all are well aware that coming out of our medium-term planning framework, the strategy was to attract tourism investment to the island. And we all know what happened with sandals. We all know that this current administration took responsibility for derailing the sandals deal, and the sandals deal had the potential to attract approximately 150 visitors to the island within 3 years. That project also had the potential to transform the island's GDP, increasing the output by 25% or upwards of 50 million US dollars, and
Now,
also
Mr. Jack,
create employment
just allow me to interject here quickly. And I hear you, what you're saying with sandals, but I know one of the things that they were mentioning is that they wanted to continue the partnership with Condor, for example, to boost the tourism sector so that more visitors can come to the island. So do you think this is a good start, at least to continue boosting the tourism sector, especially coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and knowing how the island would have suffered in that particular sector?
The island confronted its challenges during the pandemic, and and as part of the past administration, we made strategic alliances with carriers, Virgin, BA, and Condor. And what we're seeing now is just a continuation of some of those negotiations in the past. But what we need is to face and to confront the three main challenges within the tourism sector. The need for room stock, adequate room stock, high quality rooms. There's an existing gap of approximately 2,500 rooms. The need for increased marketing and the need to attract airlift. And that is why the Sandals deal was so important, not just to Tobago, but Trinidad and Tobago, and to allow Tobago to increase its contribution to national economic activity and also to earn much needed foreign exchange for the country. And
Right.
that is why the Marriott project as well is important to the island following the derailment of the Sandals project. And again, this administration was up in arms against the Marriott project. I note with some optimism the Chief Secretary's change in posture. However, what is of major concern is their solution for the derailed Sandals deal of the construction of a hotel on swampland at the edge of the airport runway. And I know the EMA and the necessary agencies will have much to say about this because this is equally concerning to us. So, in terms of the necessary support for the tourism sector, it is important because discussions with Sandals at the time, we were negotiating for all farmers and entrepreneurs and light manufacturers
Yeah,
to have first preference on that project. So we
of
need to
course.
stimulate economic activity on the island, and the tourism sector will allow us to really transform the island's economy over a short period of time
Yeah.
and to
Mr. Jack,
allow
allow
us
me just
to.
to interject again because I want to get so much out of the little time we have left again. I want to switch gears to education if we can, only because I know that they are also thinking of making the Roxborough Secondary School a bit more technical in nature so that students can be able to get more technical skills. Your thoughts on that as well?
Well, human capital development is a pillar and a plank that the PNM and the former administration has, that we have given priority to over the past years. And the data will point to the fact that in 2001, when we came into office, persons with tertiary education and post-secondary education was well below 9%. In 2021, that figure is over 20%. And we are heartened by the fact that we have seen the fruits of and the returns on investment with a number of our young professionals returning to the island to make their contribution. We also have to retool and prepare Tobago to take the mantle of responsibility with respect to new and emerging technology, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and we have to retool our education system and to continue to invest in our young people. And
Yeah.
that is why we invested in necessary funds, approximately $7 million, to construct the Innovation Center at the Tobago Information Technology Limited, where we partnered with firms such as Huawei and others to provide the necessary training, retooling, and upskilling for our young people to prepare them for the future. I have not seen that intimated in the budget. While the Roxborough initiative is a good start, we need to accelerate the pace. Additionally, we did the work with respect to the necessary study to make Tobago an intelligent island. I see that that the phrase is now being coined smart city. But in making Tobago an intelligent island and using ICT as an enabler of socioeconomic development, one of the key components there is education and training. And
Yes.
again, the budget was a bit silent on that. And that is very important if we are to remain relevant, if we have to increase productivity, if we have to facilitate the transformation and the modernization of the Tobago public sector, it is important that we retool and continue the upskilling and training program for current public officers and our young persons who are in secondary school and those who may have left secondary school.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Jack, quickly, just a few more points to note. I know that there was also a thrust to scale down the Tobago Heritage Festival. Of course, we're a few days away from July, and we have the Tobago Heritage Festival coming up, which is one of the major attractions on the island. But I know that this current administration is saying they want to scale it back a bit so that they can invest in other things. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that as well.
Again, in the absence of any clear overarching policy, we are seeing, the conflicting and the confusion with respect to policy. On one hand, they are articulating the support for the orange economy, the support for the creative sector. They need to link the creative sector with tourism. But you're not seeing that corresponding support, financial support, and policy support with respect to expenditure. So everything is being scaled down, but what you have scaling up is activities that really are not in sync with the island's creative sector. The Heritage Festival, as you know, together with other festivals, Blue Food and others, are part of Tobago's unique heritage. They also facilitate during that slow period an attraction for persons in the domestic tourist sector to come across to the island. So if you're scaling down all these activities, one, you're impacting directly the creative artisans and their ability to earn an income. You're also impacting negatively the tourism sector because with a scale down version, you're limiting the prospects and the offerings for both local and foreign tourists to come and participate. So there's a need for a rethink with respect to the overall planning process, the budget. And this also points to the disingenuity of this administration. With the mantra to come and problem solve anything, we are seeing more confusion. We are seeing economic decline. We are seeing an increase in unemployment. Persons are being threatened. We're seeing the lack of support for the private sector. Persons are being blacklisted, and a lot of our financial resources, they're not being circulated within Tobago, and our contractors and suppliers on the ground, they are not being engaged. And that is troubling in terms of instilling a greater degree of business confidence within the Tobago economy. And that is also an area of concern for me.
Yeah, I just wanted to get one more thought from you, Mr. Jack. We only have 1 more minute to answer. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but the work from home policy, because one of the things you mentioned since we started our discussion is the economic development of the island, but also to how we can move Tobago, forward in terms of using the technology, particularly in the THA. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that work from home policy that they're hoping to implement? Because I know there's a national thrust as well to start that work from home policy, but he did mention it in his presentation as well.
But I think central to what we need to do to transform the public service is one, modernization and training. So whether you're working from home or at work, in the division of finance, we started well before the pandemic to implement that facility so that the remote working from home was facilitated and we made the necessary investment. I outlined in my last budget statement, our policy initiatives, our measures, those documents are there. And it's also part of the dossier that I left for the Chief Secretary when the meeting officer assists him and his team in the transition so that we wouldn't have these disruptions in policies and so that the work of the assembly could have been undertaken in a more smooth manner. What we're seeing now is a cause for concern. After 18 months, we're seeing a pattern of disruption, a pattern of economic decline, a pattern of profligacy, and we are concerned here in Tobago, and of course, we should be concerned in Trinidad as well.
Yeah. Mr. Jack, and I'm going to stop here for now because I know you have much more to say, but I know eyes will be in the Assembly legislature this morning as the minority leader presents his response to the budget that took place on Monday. Let me just thank you so much for joining us this morning, just to give your thoughts, of course, you being a former THA Finance Secretary, on what would have been presented on Monday. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Have a good one. And that was former THA Finance Secretary Mr. Joel Jack just giving his thoughts on the budget presentation that was read by the Chief Secretary and, of course, the Finance Secretary, Mr. Farley Augustine, on Monday. Remember, the budget debate begins today. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.